What's going on, man? Welcome back to the basement. I'm Ron, and today we're going to get into our top 24 wide receivers for week 9 of the fantasy football season. We're going to divide them into tiers and kind of go over this week's slate of fantasy football. Now, with that being said, we cover fantasy football daily on this video. We are cranking it up to 9 videos this week. So if you appreciate your boys' content, make sure you go down below, subscribe, leave a like. Now, with that being said, let's not waste any time. This video is going to be very thorough. We're going to go through all top 24 wide receivers. So let's get straight into it. Let's go.
Thirsty, thirsty, trying to choose. I know I'm critical. My nitty bag.
All right. Oh, didn't have that set up the way I wanted it to. But now we are in our safe space, the tiermaker.com. You guys see it. You see all the players on the bottom. Now we are going to start off with S tier. S tier is going to comprise of 2 wide receivers. We're going to go at 1, Cooper Kupp. Cooper Kupp has to be there. He is, at this point, he is Randy Moss stuck inside of my body. A white man has not balled like this since Larry Bird. It is insane what this guy is doing. He is averaging 27 points per game, going wild. He is playing at home against Tennessee this week. Not that it matters, but it's the highest over-under of the slate, so it's that much more reason to go out there and just go absolutely wild. He's now averaging, with Derrick Henry down, he is now averaging the most points per game in fantasy football across the board. He is essentially Christian McCaffrey at this point. Then we have at wide receiver 2, Tyreek Hill at home against Green Bay. This was supposed to be, a shootout spot where it was going to be Aaron Rodgers versus Patrick Mahomes. It sucks that it can't be now because Aaron Rodgers has COVID, so it sucks. But Tyreek Hill just saw 16 targets, 27.4 points against the Giants. He is going out here. He's getting volume. He's being efficient. He's making splash plays. He's getting touchdowns. Jair Alexander for the Green Bay Packers is still hurt, so it is still a pretty soft secondary. I expect him to be, a elite start this week. That's why he's an S tier, which brings us to A tier. And I keep putting Stephon Diggs higher than he really should be. And I probably need to stop doing it. This is going to be my last week where I do this because I keep putting him inside the top 5, inside the top 4. And he goes out there and he doesn't really perform to that caliber. He still puts up, like a wide receiver 1 week, a wide receiver 2 week, but he's not coming out here. He's not putting up like a top 5, boom, like must start type week. This is the last time he's playing in Jacksonville, and he should shred this secondary. If he does not shred the secondary, if he doesn't come out here, go crazy, then I am done putting Stephon Diggs. Then moves back to like the Deebo Samuel, Jamar Chase. He is no longer in the Tyreek Hill, Devontae Adams, Cooper Kupp range of things. And this is a chart by PFF, and it shows he is tied with Cooper Kupp for having the biggest advantage against his opposing cornerback for this week. I know he doesn't deserve to be 3 again, but he has a huge advantage against his opposing corners. On top of that, he had 5 20-plus point games in 0.5 PPR last year. 4 of them came after week 8. We are now in week 9 right now. He only has 1, just like he did last year. Stephon Diggs has been known to turn things up as the year goes on. I think that we are in store for a bunch of 20-plus point games as the season goes on. I think that they are on the other side of the rainbow, if that makes sense. Again, he only has 1 right now, the same that he had last year. Now, this is kind of like bro science. There isn't that's not how numbers work. You know what I mean? He had 1 before week 8 and then 4 after week 8 last year. He had 1 now. Doesn't mean he will get 4 after week 8, but it is something to think about that he does perform on the back half of seasons and that he is due for blow-up games in this offense with Josh Allen with the kind of points that they've been putting up. So I like him as a top 3 option. Again, if he does not come out here and ball out, I'm going to start putting him, in the 6 to 12 range where he probably belongs. Then we have at 4, a man that I keep moving up. I keep moving him up my rankings everywhere. Everywhere that I have rankings, weekly rankings, rest of season rankings. I can't move him up in dynasty rankings because he's already as high as he can be. I think he's my wide receiver 3 at this point. But A.J. Brown is back. He has 2 top 5 finishes. He's going to play in LA against the Rams. So he's going to be a part of that Cooper Kupp game where it's going to be a blow-up type situation right there. And I want as much of that game as possible. That is going to be the hot stuff of the slate. 53.5 point over under. They are going to be running this offense through A.J. Brown. A.J. Brown is now the main dog on that offense. He is the best player on that offense, the main playmaker. So I like them to kind of feed things through A.J. Brown. This will be the first game without any Derrick Henry. So if there are any hiccups on the road, I could see it. But I do think that A.J. Brown is going to get a lot of touches, a lot of targets. I like him as the wide receiver 4 on the week. At wide receiver 5, we have Deebo Samuel. It's time to put some respect on his name at this point. I keep putting him as like a fringe wide receiver 1, but he is a locked and loaded top 5 wide receiver. He has now finished in the top 8 wide receivers 4 out of 7 weeks. He has a 35% plus target share in his last 2 games. They are feeding him targets. It is no longer just efficiency. He is now a target hog. It's not just like in close, small A dot or small, short A dot type, targets. I don't care who the matchup is at this point. The Arizona Cardinals have actually been pretty stingy to opposing wide receivers. But again, Deebo Samuel has been Deebo Samuel. He needs to have that respect. Another guy that's in that same category. At this point, the main league winners. If you want to win your league and Derrick Henry is now gone. All these running backs, none of them are really league winners at this point besides the guys you got off waivers. Maybe there's some that I'm missing on top of my head. But I would imagine when we go back, it's going to be really interesting to see this year. I can't wait to look back at the best ball win rates, which is where takes into account like thousands of teams, and it shows you like which players are contributing to the most championships. I think Cooper Kupp, Deebo Samuel, Jamar Chase are going to be the 3. Is that like the 3 horsemen? I don't know. They're going to be like the 3 guys that really defined fantasy championships. So Jamar Chase is on here at wide receiver 6. The Cleveland passing defense, he's playing at home against Cleveland. The passing defense in Cleveland isn't as great as advertised. They're the 8th worst defense in passing DVOA. And after getting slaughtered by the Jets last week, you would think that they come out here, with kind of, you just got dogged by the worst team in the league. You got dogged by Mike White. Like, I think that they're going to come out here and, they probably got I don't know if I'd call it a chip on your shoulder, but, you got to come out here and you got to do something to the Browns or else, things are looking tough for you. So I think this is kind of a statement game for them. The Browns have all kinds of dysfunction with Odell Beckham right now. And I like Jamar Chase in this matchup as my wide receiver 6. Now, the last wide receiver in this tier is going to be Justin Jefferson. I think that some people might say that this is, a bad matchup for Justin Jefferson, and the Baltimore Ravens are allowing the 8th least fantasy points to opposing wide receivers. But I came across this stat, kind of just by luck, but I really do like Justin Jefferson in this matchup because of it. So Justin Jefferson on the season has really excelled versus man coverage and has struggled against zone. So he has 24 targets against man coverage. He has a 91.4 PFF grade. That's 2nd in the league. 3.61 yards per route run, which is insane. Like a really good yards per route run is like 3. That's like a top 3 rate. And then versus zone coverage, 33 targets. He has a PFF grade of 64.6. So like really bad. That's like outside of the top 24 wide receivers. So he's really good when he's against man. Can just go one-on-one and beat that guy. He is beating that guy every single time. Now, I did talk with Matt Harmon in the Twitter mentions, just a little subtle name drop there. He was saying that it's not so much Justin Jefferson can't beat zone. It's something to do with either play calling, scheme, Kirk Cousins not being able to throw people open. I also heard that Justin Jefferson isn't great in contested catch situations, so that could also be it with zone. So it's not really a ding against Justin Jefferson, but it's just that the Vikings offense and Justin Jefferson are buzzing when they're playing against zone. The Ravens are known to run a high man coverage attack against the offense. They go out there, they blitz, they send back just man coverage, and they hope that they cover for long enough to not get burned. I think Justin Jefferson will burn somebody. I think he goes off this game. And at the very least, he's safe. He's 9th in expected points per game this season. He's getting the requisite volume to be a wide receiver 1. And like I said, because the Ravens run so much man and they play so ballsy by blitzing their front 7, sometimes they even have their safeties come down. I like the idea of Justin Jefferson getting loose in man and kind of just dicing a cornerback up. We saw Jamar Chase dice up Marlon Humphrey for 200 yards or 140 against Marlon Humphrey, but 200 yards against that Ravens defense, which brings us to B tier. Now, before we get into B tier, I want to let you guys know this video is sponsored by Underdog Fantasy. You guys see the logo down there. It is going to be Thursday Night Football by the time you guys are watching this, right? So it's going to be Thursday for the games tonight. I know it's the Jets versus the Colts. You probably don't have a dog in this fight. Maybe you have Jonathan Taylor. Maybe you have Michael Carter. But if you don't, maybe you just want to make things, a little bit more interesting. You throw $10 into Underdog. You deposit $10. Use my promo code Ron. You get $10 bonus. Now, the crazy part is that Underdog is doing this just as of recently. They are matching your initial deposit. So if you go all the way up, if you deposit $100, they will match your $100. $100 is the max. they will match your deposit from $0 to $100. So that's a pretty crazy deal that they're doing. There's a guy in the Discord, Derek Richard, one of the day one supporters. He said he's up like $12,000 doing not their pick'em, but their like daily fantasy contest. So like Thursday night game, you draft some like Colts players, some Jets players. You go out there into a tournament and the top guy wins. So you can go out there for the Jets Colt game. You can draft like JT, Michael Pittman, Michael Carter, maybe do someone like one off like a Keelan Cole. Go out there, try and win it all. Now, with that being said, make sure you check out, they have the pick'em games. They have, like I said, the DFS type stuff but instead of DFS, it's drafting. So not everybody has like the same team with the salaries and stuff. Now, with that being said, use my promo code Ron. You deposit up to $100. Underdog will match you when you use promo code Ron. The link to that, it'll get you right to the website, to the app. It'll be in my description. It'll be down below in the comments. I'll make sure I put it there for you guys. Now, in B tier, we have Davante Adams. This was a really weird rank for me. I might be too high on him if I'm being honest with you. He is our wide receiver 8. And it's tough because with Aaron Rodgers out with COVID, we now are looking at Jordan Love as QB, which is tough. It depends on how you feel about Jordan Love. I didn't love Jordan Love coming out. I don't think that he is going to be the next like Patrick Mahomes who like sat on the bench and then is crazy when he comes in, but he does have that kind of like upside where he's this big, gunslinger type guy. And I do like Davante Adams in that he is kind of quarterback proof. In 2017, when he didn't have Rodgers for a stretch, he averaged 13.3 points per game, which isn't anything crazy, but it would be the wide receiver 18 on the season right now. Now you're sitting here thinking, but you're putting him at wide receiver 8. Well, I think that Jordan Love is an upgrade from Brett Hundley. He's going to have a full week to practice with Jordan Love, and this is a game that is going to naturally be high scoring if the Packers let it come to that. So against the Chiefs, who are allowing a lot of fantasy points, are allowing teams to score on them and keep them in games, not just like putting away leads. I think that Davante Adams, being the stud that he is now, I like him as a top 8 option in B tier. Then we have Deontay Johnson against Chicago. And it's time to respect Deontay Johnson as a wide receiver 1. I've been out here putting him, he's like a fringe top 15 guy. He is getting an insane target share. He has a 34% target share or better the last 2 weeks. The Bears are allowing the second most fantasy points to opposing wide receivers. Deontay Johnson is getting just wild amounts of targets. He gets like double-digit targets like every game. And when we're looking at wide receivers, we want the volume because if you're getting volume, it means you're talented. And if you're talented, you will eventually have boom weeks. Then our next wide receiver 10, is going to be Keenan Allen. There's nothing too crazy about this matchup, but I just really like how Keenan Allen's trending up right now. I think he's finally kind of overtaking Mike Williams at wide receiver 1. I think him and Herbert are getting back to, kind of finding their connection here. And he just saw a big week with a 33% target share. I think they're going to keep on going to Keenan Allen here. And this is a really good matchup against the Philadelphia Eagles. They're not really good. I'm kind of over-exaggerating there, but it's the second highest over-under of the week, 50 points. There should be enough points there for Keenan Allen to be viable this week. Then at wide receiver 11, we have DJ Moore. And this one's tough because we just got the news that Sam Darnold might not play. PJ Walker is going to be out there, but DJ Moore is going to get a ton of targets from PJ Walker. He's top 10 in expected points per game in weeks 5 through 8, which has been that cold stretch from Sam Darnold, where even Sam Darnold is, passing for less than 200 passing yards. I don't see PJ Walker being that much worse than that. And the Patriots are scary at face value, but they're also allowing the 9th most fantasy points to opposing wide receivers. DJ Moore would have been like a top 12 guy last week, top 15 guy, had they not called his touchdown out of bounds, which a lot of people are saying, probably should have been called a touchdown. So I don't mind DJ Moore still as a low-end wide receiver 1 here, even with a bad quarterback. I just think that he is almost quarterback proof at this point. Then we have CeeDee Lamb. Now, I want to clear things up. Something's going on with Sam Darnold. He has like a concussion. I think that he is questionable to play on Sunday, but there's a chance that he doesn't play. So as of right now, I'm kind of acting as if PJ Walker is playing with maybe a 25% chance that Sam Darnold does play, which brings us to CeeDee Lamb. He's going to be at home against Denver. He now has 2 straight games with 100-plus receiving yards. He's been really efficient on the targets that he's been given. And Denver is quietly not that great against wide receivers. They stick out as a team to me that you don't really want to play against because they kind of just grind out games. But they're allowing the 12th most fantasy points to opposing wide receivers, so this should be, a fine spot for CeeDee Lamb as, a fringe wide receiver one here. I expected Dak to play. I expect him to be just fine. And a guy that is going to go wherever CeeDee Lamb goes on my rankings is Amari Cooper. People don't understand. Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb are seeing essentially the same volume. CeeDee Lamb is just being more efficient on that volume. I think that he is. It's really tough to say. You could say that CeeDee Lamb is the better player. I know last week with Cooper Rush, Amari Cooper saw more targets, but I think with Dak, it'll probably even out a little bit more. CeeDee just is more efficient because of the yak that he gets. He's also not pulling up a hamstring and missing a bunch of snaps every game. But Amari Cooper is essentially as good a play as CeeDee Lamb is on a weekly basis. I don't think the gap is as huge as like the public kind of thinks. Which brings us to C tier. And the first wide receiver here, DeAndre Hopkins. I have a really weird relationship with DeAndre Hopkins because now AJ Green's not going to be playing, so it is kind of a really good spot for DeAndre Hopkins, but it's getting hard to trust him. He now has no game in 2020 with over 100 receiving yards, and he barely played last week with an injury. He's still on the injury report with a hamstring thing. And remember, with hamstrings, at any point in the game, he can pull up with a hamstring and be done for the game. So that is really risky. Now, if you assumed full health, he'd probably be a top 10 play for me. Kyler Murray is also dealing with something, but if assuming everybody's at full health, DeAndre Hopkins is going to get his targets. He's going to get his. I'd still have him as like a top 10 option, but the hamstring, Kyler Murray dealing with an injury, San Francisco not really being a walk in the park at all in terms of defense. I have him in C tier as wide receiver 14. Then we have Adam Thielen. It's a pretty similar debate as with Justin Jefferson. The Ravens play a ton of man. They're like top 5 in man. You can't really find that, but I filtered on PFF. I filtered cornerbacks and then like what percentage of routes are they running against? What percentage of coverage snaps are they playing in man coverage? I think the Ravens cornerbacks, both of them, so Marlon Humphrey and Averett, are 2 of only like 6 cornerbacks that play 40% or more of their snaps in man coverage. So they're out here running a ton of man. And Adam Thielen is just like Justin Jefferson. I think it might just be a Vikings offense thing. I really can't tell. But last year he had a 2.36, or right now he has a 2.36 yards per route run against man coverage, 1.29 against zone. So he plays a lot better against man, just like Justin Jefferson. I actually like both of the Vikings wide receivers in this game. I think that if the Ravens pass a little bit here, I think there is some sneaky shootout potential in this game, which then brings us to wide receiver 16. We're going to put Mike Williams in here. And this is probably the last time Mike Williams is going to be this high, like as a top 20 wide receiver, if he lets us down again. He now has 3 of his last 4 games as duds. This is going to be plenty of scoring. Like I said, second highest over-under in this game, Philadelphia versus the Chargers. 50-point over-under. If he cannot find his way into the end zone and, get like 50 yards, it's looking tough to call him in every week like firm wide receiver 2. Then we have Marquise Brown. I'm actually making a last-second decision to put him at 16 ahead of Mike Williams because Marquise Brown is quietly in points per game like a top 5 to 10 wide receiver. Now, I know Mike Williams is also up there, but Marquise Brown has actually been hot as of recently. He has 3 top 12 finishes in his last 4 games before the bye week. So, I mean, not 4 games before the bye week, but, or actually, yeah, the 4 games before his bye week. Now, Marquise Brown is a dog. The Vikings are whatever against wide receivers. They're not great. They're not bad. But Marquise Brown has been really, really good. I think Lamar Jackson comes out here against the Vikings. I think that the Vikings are going to make this a little bit, not a track race, but it's going to be a little bit high scoring here. Marquise Brown has cooked everybody. They have like Cameron Dantzler. I don't know if Patrick Peterson is there. I think Bashad Breeland. Like the Vikings secondary isn't good at all. And Marquise Brown has been nothing but extremely efficient, making huge plays every game. So I like him this week. Then we have in D tier, our first wide receiver of D tier. I'm finally putting the respect on his name. Michael Pittman, wide receiver 18. A man, huge miss for me this season. I'll finally put some respect on his name. He is now the wide receiver 19 in points per game. I don't love the matchup against the Jets, not because the Jets are, fielding Darrelle Revis. They're actually fielding Bryce Hall, who's like, whatever, I guess. It just comes down to the fact that he has shown that he can produce on low target counts. I think that he played really well against the 49ers on Monday night or Sunday night football. I believe that was Sunday night football against the 49ers. He had like 4 targets and still turned in a fine weekly performance. And with the Jets, I think that they're just going to kill them. I think they're just going to lean on Jonathan Taylor against the Jets. And it's going to get to a spot where they don't have to pass the ball anymore. The Jets are actually allowing like the 3rd fewest wide receiver fantasy points in the league just because of how they lose, right? So obviously we have the Bengals game, we have the Titans game, but they're going on the road to the Colts. They're probably going to get they're probably going to get dogged if I'm being completely honest. So I do think that they're just going to run the football and not really have to pass that much to Michael Pittman. But the secondary isn't good at all, so I wouldn't be shocked if Michael Pittman can find a downfield target or an end zone target and turn that into fantasy points. Then we have Robert Woods at wide receiver 19 at home against the Titans. He just dropped 20 points last week. He had a rushing touchdown, a receiving touchdown. They're getting him more involved again. This Titans versus Rams game, highest over-under on the slate. We need to be targeting this, so I have him just inside of the top 24 wide receivers this week. At wide receiver 20, we have T. Higgins, a guy I will never give up on. He is matching Jamar Chase's target share as the weeks go on. He just isn't being as overly, Jamar Chase is being obnoxiously efficient at this point. He is like 6.8 expected points per game over, he's like 6.8 points per game over his expected points per game, which is unheard of. I still believe he's uber talented. He had that crazy one-handed catch against the Jets. He is a really, really talented wide receiver. The Browns are 8th worst against pass DVOA. They are not that great against opposing wide receivers. I like T. Higgins in this matchup this week as, a back-end wide receiver too. Then we have Brandon Cooks, who I think I would even move a little bit higher if we got a firm yes, Tyrod Taylor will be playing. But when Tyrod Taylor was playing, him and Brandon Cooks looked awesome. The Miami Dolphins are allowing the 3rd most fantasy points to opposing wide receivers. He's playing in Miami this weekend. So if Brandon Cooks can come out here with Tyrod Taylor, he's actually probably, if Tyrod Taylor is confirmed healthy, I think that he probably goes here at the beginning of D tier. Then we have Chase Claypool at wide receiver 22. Or no, he's still in D tier. I love Chase Claypool. Chase Claypool is somebody that has been, a wide receiver that has been at the mercy of Juju Smith-Schuster playing a lot of snaps in 2 wide receiver sets. So what ends up happening is Chase Claypool has a really high target per route run, but he doesn't have a ton of routes run. He is finally running a ton of routes. He ran 95% of the routes last week. That was, I believe, a career high. The targets will be coming. I think that he's just having a down 2 to 3 game stretch here. The Bears are giving up the 5th most fantasy points to opposing wide receivers. I got to believe that he is popping off soon. I love his pop-off potential to have, one of his trademark monster Claypool games where he comes out here and gives us like 20 plus points. I love Chase Claypool. If I was doing must starts, he would be one of them for this week. I love Chase Claypool in week 9. Then we have our last tier here, and you could put literally 10 guys in here. Once it gets past a certain point, I always struggle with these last couple spots, but I'm going to put Courtland Sutton here. Dallas gives up. He's going to be in Dallas. Dallas gives up the 8th most fantasy points to opposing wide receivers. I'm also assuming that Noah Fant misses time. So if Fant is gone and Albert Okwuegbunam is playing tight end, I think that he will be just fine. He will be viable as a back-end wide receiver too with some boom upside against the Dallas Cowboys. I know everyone wants to point to Trevon Diggs, and Trevon Diggs has been great as a ball hawk, as a difference maker, but in terms of fantasy points, the Cowboys haven't been insane against wide receivers. He's not as much a Darrelle Revis as he is, I don't know. I can't think of like a ball hawk off the top of my head, but he is someone that just creates turnovers as a playmaker, that kind of thing. Then we have Jalen Waddle as our last wide receiver on this list. I actually really like Jalen Waddle. He has a great matchup this week. He is at home against Houston. He has seen 8 to 13 targets in his last 3 games, and it's really good that he saw 12 targets against with Devontae Parker on the team. He's just getting used in this like A-dot role, kind of like a Randall Cobb, like a Cole Beasley. But what people don't understand is we haven't seen it yet. I don't know if it's because Jalen Waddle needs to settle in, but if you watch this man college highlights, he runs like a legit 4-4. He's getting screens, taking them to the house. I think it's only a matter of time until we see a Jalen Waddle type play. I wasn't high on Jalen Waddle coming out, but he as a prospect, he as a freshman outproduced freshman Devonta Smith, if I'm right. Or he as a freshman outproduced sophomore Devonta Smith, if I'm correct, and sophomore Henry Ruggs. Jalen Waddle had a really, really solid freshman year. All the film guys love what he can do on the field. He high points balls. He's a playmaker with the ball in his hands. We just haven't seen anything crazy from a yak perspective. But I want to believe that that's just luck, and that if the targets are there, then one of those huge splash plays will come out of it. So I'm actually really excited about Jalen Waddle, not just right now, but moving forward. If he keeps seeing, if he keeps seeing 10 plus targets, I don't see how he doesn't explode very soon. Now that is going to do it for us today, fellas. If you want access to the complete weekly rankings, that will be up on Patreon tonight, Thursday. I always have those out by 7:30 p.m. so you guys can get those start sits in before kickoff. Just want to say I love you guys. We are at 6.9K. I'm going to go upstairs. I'm going to eat some dinner, say hi to Winnie. I'm trying to think if I have anything else off the top of my head, but that's it. We're going to have. So I did 2 videos today. I did 2 videos on Tuesday. We're going to have. I think we're going to have a video. I had the patrons vote. I think we're going to. I know one of the videos for sure is probably going to be on Saturday of me going over like my managed leagues, just kind of updating you guys halfway through the season, how my leagues are doing, so you guys can kind of see where I'm at. So I'm not just talking on here capping a bunch and my teams suck. I actually have a team right now in the FFPC $350 team that is inside of the top 300 teams out of like a 13,000 team contest. So I'm really pumped about that. I do believe, could be wrong, I think Henry Ruggs was on that team. But that's going to do it for us today, fellas. And I will see you guys in the next one.